Welcome back, everybody. In this episode, we're going to be looking at how you can make a tile set for your game using GIMP or any other software that you use to make your artwork. And Tiled. Tiled is the map editor that basically you can use the tile sets to create a map. So I'll be creating four maps, or four kind of tile set-ish things. One being a beach, another being a dungeon, a forest, and a town. I'll probably skip over most of it just so that it's not too long. But I'll show you how you can make a consistent tile set that you can easily export into uh, GB Studio to use in your games. So to begin, you actually probably want to do some research of what you want your tile set to look like, what pieces you need, and what games you're kind of inspired by. Or if you think you're good enough, you can just jump straight in. I have got some. I've been looking at the Zelda tile maps, and I've been looking at other things along those veins of thought. So if we just create a new document, I've already got a tile set size ready. It's just 256 by 256. Because we're working in GB Studio, we want to have it so it's the tiles that you're, or like the grid size is 8 by 8. Currently it's 16 by 16, so I'm just setting it to 8 by 8. And this means that you can see every single square on here. And to start, I'll just show you how you can put this into tiled. It's very simple, and it'll only take a few steps. And every time we export the file we are updating, it will update in tiled, and we can easily make any changes. So first thing we want to actually do is we want to go into GIMP, and we just want to export this to a place that we actually. What I'm going to do is save it first. Save it so you don't lose it. So now I've saved it. You can export it as just call it whatever you want. I'm going to call mine Tileset, and just have it somewhere that you can easily get to, preferably with all the other assets and artwork. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go into Tiled. This is Tiled. You can get this free from Itch, I think. And we're just going to press New Tileset. And now this pops up, and we need to, just call it Tileset, whatever. I'm just going to call it Tileset 1, just in case we make multiple. And then we just use the source, and the source is the most important thing because it's exactly the file that we're referencing, and it will be updated whenever we update the file we're exporting from GIMP. So I've put in the correct file. Its tile width is 8 by 8. So now we've exported it and we've put it in a smart location. You can see this is exactly what we exported from GIMP. It's 256 by 256 tiles. Simple. Just is exactly what we exported from GIMP. So now we can update it, and it will be easily put into there, and we can see any changes we make as we make them. So to begin, I'm going to be making I think I'll start with the forest tile set, or which will be trees, grass, rocks, and maybe some logs. So I'll start very simply. I'll just go in the top corner, and I have my colors here already selected. You can get your colors from gbstudio.dev. Okay, so first of all, you need to remember that the lightest color is, although you can change the colors in color mode, if you're going to put it onto the original Game Boy, the light is the light and the dark is the dark. So keeping that in mind, what I'm going to do is probably have the grass as light green, and this is so we have some variation, and it means we can also put little blades of grass in it. And these, obviously, you can do whatever style you want, but I'm just gonna make 4 different grass tiles, and it's just gonna be simple that we can easily randomize between. So one of them, I think I'll have it as just green, just so we can have a blank tile. Second one, we'll do this little grass thing. And then third one, we'll do some bigger grass things. And then the last one we'll do a flower, I think. How are we going to do this? Maybe use a darker color? That looks fine. And obviously, we can now export this to the same place we exported it last time, and then we can jump into Tiled, and you can see it there. You can see that we have updated our tile set to have 4 tiles. So now what we can do in Tiled is we can create a new map. So I press new map, and this has come up, and what we want to do is make sure the tile set is at 8x8, the tile size, and we can have this basically to whatever we want and then crop it later. So keeping that in mind, I'll just keep it on 64x64. It's a relatively good size. We can increase it if we want to. We can also shrink it down. So let's put save as, and then you want to save it in a good location. Okay, so we saved that map, and here we are in it. As you can see, it's pretty big. It's 64x64 tiles, which is honestly pretty massive. And so now what we can do is we can see our tile set right here. We can zoom in on it just like we could in the original thing. And what we want to do is you just click on the tile you want, and you can just paint it in. You can choose whatever one you want, and if you select them all and select this dice button up here, you can easily just move it around, and it becomes all randomized as you're painting it down. See this? And this means you can easily create an area of grass, but obviously you might feel like, oh, there's too many flowers here. So what you can do is we can go back into the tile set, right click on the tile that you want to edit, and you see here probability. And if we change this probability, 1 means it has basically 100% probability of turning up. But if we do 0.1, then that's a 10% probability. Obviously, the more you have in your randomness, the less likely they are. But it does mean that it's less likely than the other ones. So now we change that. If we do it again and we do this, you can see the flowers are much less often. You see that? There's only 1 here. And that's an easy way to make sure you don't have too much of one thing. If we want to, we can come in and change the probability of this one to be more probable. So it will mean it will overwrite all of these basically, and like force them out. So let's have a look at that change. If we go down here, just go along here, we see compared to this one, there's probably a lot more grass. It doesn't seem like much more because the 2 isn't actually much of a change. If we were to do 10, it would be a much bigger change. But that's how you change the probability for your things. And if we go in here and we just make a huge map here, you can see it's it kind of has the probability we'd expect. If we fill it, and then we can export it and try and put it into GB Studio quickly. So we export as image. So you want to go into where it is, go into the assets folder, go into backgrounds, and just save it as whatever you want to do. I'm going to save mine as grass. So what I'm going to do is create a new scene. What I'm expecting is the scene to be too big, but it doesn't look like it is. It's only 64x64. There's only 4 tiles, and as you can see here, it's obviously using the green. If we choose the color, I mean red. It's using red. Clearly, it's using red. But if we choose green, we fill it in, then we can see now that it has the color we expect it to have. And obviously, that would be great if it was like an arena game. If we were to fill it with cats, and maybe have them respawn, after a certain amount of time. Might do a video on respawning. That would be a pretty good tutorial, I think. Yeah, I know if we place the player in here, then they would have to just fight off the cats to end the wave, and then a new wave. And that's how you make a tile set. So at this point, we now know how we can make a tile set, and we can export it into GB Studio to use in our games. But I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to make a full tile set of beach, dungeon, forest, and town. So we now know how to make a tile set in GIMP, export it into tiled so that we can create a tile map with it and then export that tile map into GB Studio so we can use it in our own games. But what I want to do now is create a full tile set because I want to expand this tutorial I'm making, this series of the Zelda combat, into more of a gamified thing so that we can kind of go through things that game developers struggle with and things that I can't really cover in shorter videos because they they require a longer experience with the game to come into those issues. So I'm going to get straight back into GIMP and we're going to look at making more of our tile set. Okay, so we have our grass. We now want to have some rocks, some trees, and maybe some logs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tree. Trees are probably the most important thing because they are used as a block for the player to not go into the, to a section that they shouldn't be going. So I think I'm going to try and do a Zelda style thing. If you remember Zelda trees, they're like this, I think. And that's very bad. And they have, when they're tiled together, they're like this. I think the GB Studio ones are quite similar, but there is a lot of detail in the GB Studio ones. And I kind of want to have a more cartoonish vibe, just like Zelda. So let's have a look at this and see what we can do. Okay, I think that looks fine. It looks a bit like a mushroom, but that will just add to the fantasy aspect of it. You see, I don't have an outline at the bottom because it'll be touching the ground, and like the outline is more reserved for things that are like overlapping something else. So you can see like this has an outline, this has an outline because you want it to look like it's overhanging the base of it. So now what I'm going to do, now you have this tree, is we're going to paste it around so that we can see what it looks like when we place it together. Okay, so first thing I noticed is this thick line might not be great, but it does create some darkness in the artwork, which could be quite good. I think that's pretty good. I think that's fine because we're not trying to waste too much time on this, and we're trying to create a foundation that we can easily build off of. Because we won't know how good it is until we see it with everything else. So there's no point wasting our time trying to make something perfect now when perfection isn't based off of this, how it looks sitting right here. It's based off of how good it looks in the actual artwork in the game. I'm going to make an outline for the grass because I want the grass to have a feeling to it, as if it's, bleeding onto sand or something, because I'm going to have a beach area. So I'm deliberately keeping this here because if I was to move it, it would change the artwork in the tiled, and that grass map we already made, we'll have to redo it, and we'll have to change the probabilities again. So you need to keep that in mind when you're making stuff. Obviously, if you keep it simple and you don't mind too much about changing it, because if your focus is on the tile set, then laying out the tile set is quite important. But when you're making the artwork, to change the tile set is to damage the artwork. So if we look at this now and we export it, export the tile set, same thing as before. Open up tiled. I'm going to create a new map. Same thing again, 64 by 64. This time call it map 2. And what I'm going to do now is just paste these trees in. So what I want to do here is I'm going to make a clearing and I'm going to make a path out, as simple as. So first of all, I'll just paste these down just so we can create a shape that we can work with. Okay, so you see here we've made a clearing and there's a path that leads off as it goes to the right. And what you want to keep in mind is in GB Studio, when you move to the edge of the map, the camera locks to the side. If you've ever seen it, it means that the character can go all the way to the right. And if you were to have a black outline around this whole map, it would mean that it would show black when you get to the edge of the map, and it wouldn't push your character to the edge. It would show the black instead because there's black here. So what I'm going to do in this map is make sure that when we get to the edge of the map, it's not showing black, it's not pushing us to the edge of the screen, it's showing trees. And that's because I want it to make it so that it feels like the forest is very dense, and that the player is seeing more and more trees, and they think that instead of it being the edge of a game map, or just it's unseeable, they see trees and they think, wow, this forest is dense. So here we are, and I've filled in the whole forest, and it feels very dense, and that's very good. But if we want to, we can add small little imperfections, like right here. You can have a little, basically where there isn't a tree. And if we just copy that around, making sure we're putting it in the correct place, it will feel like, it's more realistic in a way, because it's not going to be that every single tree is completely perfect. And to make different forests feel different with the same tile set, you can just have tree, or like a forest that is more sparse, and rather than having forests that are so dense. And if you see, you might be thinking, well, how with this little tile set do you make a single tree? So I'll just show you. If we look here, we have all the pieces to make it. It's just that they're not right next to each other. You see here, this corner here has green in, which arguably we might want, and this one has a little bit of white, which isn't great. Because the reason why I say that is because if we had grass around it, we wouldn't be able to pass it off as grass, because there's a little bit of white in. I mean, we could pass it off as it, but we might not want to. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those grass pieces that I made a minute ago, and I'm just going to fill them in, simple as. So I think I obviously need a white piece, so I'm just going to use this one for now. So I need to remember that that's my white piece when I go back into GIMP. And you might already be seeing some things that I do need in this tile set. For example, outside corner pieces would be very useful. But let's just use green for now, and then let's fill it in using that tactic we used before of the randomness. So as you can see here, I've got fill bucket and I've got the random mode on, and as I'm moving it around, it's randomizing. So we can choose, we can just move it around and just think to ourselves, which one looks good? And then we can always change it, but it's better to let the random do the work for us and then change it afterwards. Okay, I actually like this. You see how all the flowers are at the top? It kind of creates a feeling that, all the flowers are at the top. And if you can see here, the tree is surrounded by white. You can see our tile set doesn't really account for this. Yeah, so obviously it's not perfect, but it does start the job for us. We can already see what tiles we need in our tile set, but I will keep it like that for now, just because I kind of like it. Has a certain style to it. So I'll just fill in the whole map with this, and then we'll move on to a different tile set. Okay, so we might obviously want to have some rocks, but I think I'll save that for the dungeon tile set, and then we can then bring them in and put them in here as well. So I kind of like how this looks. What we need to remember to do is to resize map auto crop. There's in the map option up here, there's auto crop, and what it does is just cut it to the size of the map that you have. And as long as you don't fill in the whole map, then it will crop it to what you want. So I'm just going to export that as something of my choosing. Make sure you put it in the backgrounds folder or the assets folder of the project you're using. I'll call it forest clearing. If we jump back into GB Studio and we can create it, you see here it already knows we want to use it. Let's make it green. And now you can see here we've got a very nice tile set. The trees don't look that bad. I think I'll have to test it in, on an original Game Boy or on a Game Boy Color to see what it really looks like. But the little grass does look quite nice. The trees look fine. And because we've got black outline on the trees, it's very obvious that it's the edge of the map, which is very nice. So yeah, that's how you would make a forest tile set. I'll now move on to the town tile set, just because we would want this clearing to go into a town. Okay, so I'm going to go on another layer, and I'm going to start blocking out the house. Obviously, like I said, I've been looking at Zelda tile sets, so I have some inspiration of what I want it to look like. So I'll just go straight into what I want it to look like. Okay, so this is definitely a house, there's no mistaking it. I've tried to make this design kind of work. Yeah, so this is definitely questionable, but I will continue anyway. I still want to make a path and a fence. I will have a classic little Zelda post thing. Just simple stuff. Same style as what we've been making before. And the path will be extremely simple because we want to optimize our tile set. So what I'm going to do is just create some blocks and then copy around and see if it looks good, and then add some shading to it. Okay, so I can already see this this needs to be closed up here. So now this looks very messy, but it does have some kind of shape to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill it in with green, and I'm going to add a slight highlight to the top. Maybe even to the corners. Oh yeah, we want to do it on this tile, in the center tile. Okay, now if we copy and paste it again, you can see the effect of it. Obviously, if we were to use a sprite, it would have, you know, the capability to update as we do it, and we'd probably make less mistakes. But that also costs some money, and I'm very used to using GIMP at this point. Okay, so that isn't fantastic, but I think we should use it anyway, just to see what it looks like, because actually, you know what I'm already thinking? It's too black. And that's because the black often represents the outline of something. So if we do this, actually, if we make the light green white, we make the green light green, we make the black dark green, I think that could solve our problem. It might look a bit like grass, but if we use the color mode, we can always change the color of it to gray. Okay, so what we want to do is just cut out and move it somewhere. I'll just move it to the grass tile set, just so it's more compact. Save, export to tileset.png. I'm going to open up tiled, and I'm going to press new map, just call it map 3. I'm going to make a town. So I'll get right back to you once I've made a little town. Okay, so this is what I've got so far. I've got the, you know, like a little town hall or something, and then a couple of little houses, paths connected them, some little fencing, and now I'm going to use the trees that we had in the other one, just to quickly, you know, copy and paste and fill up the area. Okay, so as you can see here, I've used just this small tile set, and I've managed to create this big map. As you can see, there's a path going through, there's a couple of houses, the fence is around, I've got a little extra area up here, added some more flowers, and it goes through into another section that we could make into a beach or the dungeon area. But yeah, as you can see, just from a small tile set, you can do quite a lot. So I recommend making your own tile sets. Obviously, I'll be making a beach and a dungeon, just small areas now. I've just noticed there are some errors in this, and that is inevitable just because there's a lot of stuff to do. But yeah, I'll save this, put it into GB Studio, and then get working on the dungeon and the beach. Okay, so we're back in GIMP, and now I'm going to be working on a on a water tile set or a beach tile set. And this one I'll do a tiny bit different just because it requires a more complex way of thinking. So first off, we'll start with a center tile. So this will be what the water looks like. So I'm gonna have a wave, I'm gonna have two like reflection bits, one being thicker than the other. And hopefully if we were to copy this around, it would kind of be consistent. I mean, it does have some water aspects, and I'm just gonna accept that as what it is. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna imagine that there's the beach here. So let's imagine the white is the sand. I'm gonna have one tiny line here that has dark green, just so that it has some depth in it, which might not be perfect, but we can just live with it for now. Because like I said, it's not meant to be perfect. We're meant to update it based on how it feels in the game. So there we go. So this is my idea of the waves lapping up on the beach. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it on all four corners. It might not be necessary though, because I want to have the beach just be a straight line basically. So with that in mind, I might keep this as is. It's very simple, but it does let us expand on it later. So I'm going to put it in this corner, just so it's away from the rest for now, because this will become a large thing. I want to have a couple of little rocks and shells though on the beach, so I'm going to use a light color so the player knows that it's not meant to be, you can walk on it. But now we're here, I want to make a cliff set as well, because we want to be able to go into a cave. So I'm going to move down here, a new layer. I'm going to think about the door. The door will be obviously the size of a player. So that's 16 by 16, which is 2 tiles by 2 tiles. And obviously we want it to be black because we're going to be going into it, and it's like it's a shadow. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the cliff tile set. We want it to make it look like it's not, you can't just walk into it, or you can't walk on it, so it'll be very dark colors. It'll be tileable, and we want a top and a bottom. So on the top, I'm going to have it make it look like the grass is, coming down it. Very simple. I might make it so the grass is coming up at it, just like the top, but a bit different. Just so it looks like there's, the grass is growing up it. I might do this with the green color actually, just so it's not as similar to the top bit, and so we know the top has more light. I'll just remove some aspects of this. I actually like the top one too much, so I'm just going to copy it a bit inverted. Okay, so now I'm going to use the black to create some effects. Okay, so let's just see how that tile's left and right. Looks quite good. Let's see how it tiles up and down. Okay, so there is basically a random thing here, so okay, there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy it into this bit here. I'm going to copy into this bit here. And I'm going to call that a day, just because we don't want to waste too much time on it because we haven't tested it yet. So we've got the door, which I'm going to add some little bits to. I'm just going to take this. I'm going to take this. And I'm going to also, I guess I'm going to take the top as well. Just so it's still tiles. And I'm going to take away some more of it. So now that kind of looks more like a cave opening, and it also should tile more with the cliff face that we've created. So I'm just going to put this in a smarter location on the tile map. And then we're going to press File, Save, Export to Tileset. I'm going to go into Tiled. I'm going to create a new map. And then now we're going to make a beach tileset. So obviously I'm going to take this section of the map that I have here and paste it into this bit here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine there's a big cliff here, and there's ocean. Maybe more like here. Okay, so I also want to put the door here. Maybe more like here. Okay, so I hope this is clear. We can look at it now. We can see that it would be useful if we had a diagonal, water edge. But it does work as a thing. We've got the entrance here, which has a path which breaks up into grass. The grass hugs the cliff line, and there's an entrance to the thing. There's even a little bit of grass down at the top of the cliff bit, so it looks like, there's some mystery and we can get up there maybe later in the game. We've got a little bit of, of the path over here to make it look like there's some rocks by the base of the cliff by the sea. And then obviously the sea is very deep. So, and the rest is grass. So, yeah, I think this works pretty well as what I intended. And I think we could easily use this cliff as the dungeon thing. But I feel like I might leave the dungeon tile set for another video, just because we could make that really special if I export this and we look at it in game. I think it will become clear, what this game is turning into. Okay, so I'm just going to paint in some different colors in here so that we can get a better sense of how this will look. That's a better color. It'll be very rough, just because we're trying to, in game development, we're not trying to, perfect every single thing every time we do it. We're trying to slowly work towards and learn what perfection looks like, rather than to, imagine that we think we know everything straight away. So I'm turning as you can see as well, there's no shape to the cliffs. Because it's just one tile, it looks very odd, which kind of does create some mystery. And although the shape isn't that great, it kind of does work. If we add some blue to the sea, it might help. Obviously, we'd want to create our own palettes where most of the colors are overlapping, because as you can see here, the beach is changing color as we change it. like change the water next to it. Or we could either design the tile differently, or we can design how we approach it differently. So as you can see, in this video, just from a few tiles, we've made a lot of a game, really. We've got like 6 grass tiles, or 8, a path tile, some trees, a house, some random looking rock stuff in a doorway, some beach tiles and a fence, and we've managed to make an entire forest area that we can, fight stuff in. We've got an entire town we can have, text events in. And we've got a whole beach thing which we can do more stuff in. We've even got the suggestion of more stuff. So I think I'll leave it here because this is getting pretty long. But in the next video, we can do many things. We could talk about, adding our own specific colors for our tile sets. We can talk about, making random dungeons. So every time you enter a dungeon, it's slightly different. We can need to do the dungeon tile set, but that would be quite simple, I think. We can talk about many things, and I would prefer if you guys tell me what you want to see. The files for this will be going up onto the Patreon, so you can get the tile set, you can get these exported maps, and you can get the entire project. I want to thank my first Patreon. They'll be up on screen right now. Yeah, so like this video if you like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment on what you want to see next. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.